Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another 10-minute openings video. Today we are going to be discussing something a little bit more of a broader subject, which is basically E4 basics. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean basically is there's a lot of openings and openings ideas you can play with the move 1 E4, but here we're just going to be talking about the basics of ideas, what openings work well for if you are like a dynamic, tactical player, what works best for you, and just touching on the basics of playing moves with the move e4 first in this video, and then maybe in future videos we'll go into more depth. But we're talking about the basics here. Now, of course, we're going to play e4, and we're going to start if our opponent goes the move e5, this is where we'll begin. Now, even from here, there's a lot of ideas, okay? So you can go classical with move knight to f3, and you can continue from there. But also you have a couple of gambit ideas, right? So you have, of course, you have f4, which is the king's gambit. This is the king's gambit king's gambit accepted. And e4, e5, you also have d4, which is the Scotch gambit, I believe, or the, I believe this is the Danish gambit, which, yeah, the Scotch gambit goes this, knight to c6, and the move d4. This is the Scotch gambit. Okay, so yeah, e4, e5, we have king's gambit, we have the Danish gambit, and those are the options right now. But also we have the move knight to f3. We have also, you can play the move knight to c3. I don't recommend that though. But knight to f3 is also an idea. And of course you will see either the most popular move is the move knight to c6. And actually this position with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6 is the most commonly seen position after 2 games of chess at all levels. But with these moves on the board, you also have options. So like I said before, you have this, which is the Scotch gambit. Okay? It's not really a gambit, but you're just opening the center more. But you also have, of course, you don't have to go d4, and you can also go the classic bishop moves, right? So you have the Ruy Lopez, which is bishop e5. You have the Gaucho Piano, or the Italian opening with the move bishop c4. And your opponent can, of course, develop in a myriad of different ways. Most commonly, you might see at a higher level, you might see the move knight to f6, whereas, or in this case, I would go knight to c3. But there are different ideas as well. So there is also, like I said, the Ruy Lopez, not with the king. Ruy Lopez, which is bishop to b5. And there's variations here too. So there's a6, which is the Morphy defense. There's the black leaves their knight there. They can move other pieces. There's really, whatever. But here, if they play the move knight to a6, I believe the idea is to just bring the bishop back. I don't know if anybody would actually take the knight. I mean, of course you can if you're, especially at a lower level, and your opponent doesn't, if you're at a lower level, like 1,000 or lower, your opponent probably doesn't know a ton of theory in the Ruy Lopez. So maybe experiment with taking, maybe experiment with not taking, and see which works out best for you, and then go along with that. But overall, I would probably say back up, don't take right away. And if they attack you, of course, they might just overextend. Go here, and if they attack you again, you can just go here. And if they close down, that's fine. You can always attack those pawns again. Now, knight to f3, knight c6, we talked about. There's also the d4, which I talked about. So d4 is, of course, the Scotch opening, which looks like this. So knight takes, and the queen takes. And your queen is kind of in the center there. It can be a little bit not very pleasant, but it's almost like you're playing the Scandinavian defense just with the white pieces, and you have the queen there. And the knight can't, pieces can't really attack you very easily. They can play something ridiculous like c5, but then you just move the queen back. But I mean, the most common thing you might see, I don't know how often people actually accept the gambit and they go into something like this. But in the Scotch game, something pretty common might be the move knight to f6. I am not an expert in this Scotch. I have played it many times, but I don't study a whole lot of theory, mostly because I'm not as I just don't play e4 openings a ton. I like to learn the basics so I can play against them and I can play them to kind of take my opponents out of theory a little bit. But I am not as well versed as I am with d4 based openings, which we can talk about in a future video with d4 basics. But if they play the move knight to f6, just good principle, good rule of thumb is just to develop the pieces. So what I'm thinking, knight to c3, bishop f4, bishop g5, not that. Bishop g5 is okay, but you can be very easily attacked, so I wouldn't recommend it. Bishop f4 is fine. And then maybe if you want, maybe you can even bring the bishop to e3, and then that'll allow you to go here. Guess another idea. Also, bishop e2 might be fine right away, so that, let's say they play like bishop here, you go here, they castle, you can castle, that's fine. And let's say they play something like this, you can just bring this back. And now you have a couple of ideas now, so you can bring the bishop out. I wouldn't recommend going there because you would lose a bishop. Bring the rooks, of course. Connected rooks are very nice, and it's honestly not too bad. You could start a pawn storm on this side. Now, let's talk about if your opponent doesn't even go e5. So you play the move e4, and you're waiting there on chess.com, just watching 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds tick past, just waiting for your opponent to do something, and they play something totally different from e5. Now, the most common move besides e5 is the move c5. Okay, if you don't know that, then go watch another video on this channel and maybe you'll learn good beginner-friendly things. c5 is, of course, what we know as the Sicilian defense, named after Sicilian, which comes from the word, of course, Sicily, which is the island off the coast of Italy. But of course, the Sicilian defense is such a popular, such a fun opening to learn. I very much recommend that you learn it. It is more tailored towards like intermediate players though, so know that. If you're a beginner, if you're like 1,000, you can still learn it for sure. Go learn it and go have a fun time. But if you really want to learn, you have to put in the work. If you really want to learn this opening, it is very, you'll have a lot of success with it, but you have to put in the work, so just know that. Now, of course, like I said, there's a lot of variations. So when you're playing with the white pieces, normally I'm talking about the Sicilian defense while playing with the black pieces, but with the white pieces, I recommend going the move knight to f3 and they're going to try to like play maybe again, like there's so many different variations. Maybe they're a Najdorf player, so they play d6, and then you go d4 and they take and they go here and they do their Najdorf Sicilian. But you don't have to do that. You can go knight to c3, you can do this. I don't know I don't know if all of these moves I'm talking about are like accurate or they are good moves to play. I hope they are, but these are just some ideas that I would play. Like if I'm playing blitz, I wouldn't play any of these like weird moves just at a tournament, like a not a professional, but like a real serious tournament. But if you're playing blitz, or not rapid is more serious, but if you're playing blitz online or for sure bullet, have a fun time with it. You don't want to just be stressing out. Chess isn't all about stressing out. You don't want that, because then it's not going to be enjoyable. And believe me, I know what chess not being enjoyable feels like. Now, if you are in this position, again, like I said, develop the light square bishop, castle early, maybe play d4 if you want to, if you're feeling a little bit risky, and just have fun with it. Now, e4, and what have we got? c5. Again, if you don't, I'm not going to cover everything in huge, great detail because this is a beginner's opening. I don't even know how long this is going to be, probably past 10 minutes, but it's a beginner video, so it's not going to be super in-depth and stuff, but I want to give you some ideas, so that's why we're here. So e4, and there's a few other options. So first of all, there is d5, which is of course the Scandinavian defense. Here I just recommend playing into the Scandinavian, and if you play it right, then it actually can be a slight advantage for the white side. Now, the top lines are for white are playing firstly the move d4, And then if they play knight to f6, you play the move knight to f3, and then you're going to go either bishop to d2 first, or you can go, I believe the move is bishop to d3. But yeah, I would recommend just going bishop to d2 first, of course. It's their move. And yeah, so bishop to d2. And they have to start thinking of where they're going to put their queen, because you're going to move their knight and attack. It's actually very kind of tricky, so they might have to like go over here or over here. If they leave it there and they go something like here, then you're just going to move back. Actually, not back there. Actually, I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend going there. So if they go here, then you take, and they'd probably take back here, or not there. They'd probably take back there, because otherwise you could check them with your queen and stuff. So they take back here, and then you can just go. You actually got to be careful, because if you play this wrong, you could lose this pawn, which, yeah, you might just be losing anyway. So, I mean, you have this. They have frighteningly horrible pawn structure, but, you know. You could maybe go, let me think. So this pawn is hanging on b2, of course, but you don't really have to worry about the rook because it's protected unless you move the queen. I'm trying to think if there is another way to win a little bit of material. This pawn is hanging, so maybe you move like queen there. But if they do, queen here, think about this. So queen here, this pawn is hanging now. Oh, but you do have check here, and then you're going to win the rook. You have that. So that's a good idea. Now, this is the white side playing against the Scandinavian defense if they play all of this stuff, right? So if they don't play it, then it's not really going to work, and you're not doing too well, but it's not a lost position. Now, what do we have left to talk about? We have just a couple of things, I think. Well, not a few things, but we have the French defense. We've got the Caro-Kann defense, which I'm not going to study. You can study the Caro-Kann all you want, but I don't care about it, really. It's a okay opening. I'm just bored to death just talking about it. You also have the Perk defense, which I find to be one of the most interesting openings. It's really not played a lot anymore. Of course, I have learned a lot. I made my own beginner's 10-minute Perk defense video. Check it out over here. But I got a lot of information and inspiration for that video from the videos from National Master Robert Ramirez. His YouTube channel has a lot of beginner-friendly openings videos. He does a lot of stuff. If you want to learn, a beginner's method to the Najdorf Sicillian of the Sicilian defense, I definitely recommend his video. But anyway, he talks a lot about the perk defense. He has a lot of information from it's mostly for the black side against white, but he talks about if your opponent plays the classical variation of the 150 attack or the Austrian attack. If those things don't mean anything to you, I definitely recommend that you check it out, because he does a very good job of explaining it in a good beginner-friendly manner. Yeah, the perk defense is very nice for the black side. It's not really played a lot, but again, I want to keep this short and sweet if I can. So I hope you guys got something out of this. I know I didn't cover a lot of theory about openings and stuff. I just wanted to give you some ideas. The person that I hope sees this is the person who doesn't know anything about openings. Like, they don't know what openings mean, they don't know what they look like, they don't know anything about them. So that's what I'm hoping, and what I hope you take out of this is more in-depth stuff. So you see something like a variation of the Sicilian defense, or you see the Scandinavian defense for the white pieces or something like that, and you want to learn more. That's what I'm hoping you get out of this. So again, if you want to learn like beginner 10-minute variations for some of the stuff we talked about, like the King's Gambit and other things, check out the 10-minute openings playlist on my YouTube channel. We're gonna cut it here. Yeah, thank you all for watching. Again, check out that video, check out the playlist, check out the perk defense video that I made right over there. You can subscribe right over here, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to check out the website, of course. Get your mug, get your merch, boom, all the good stuff. Link down in the description. Support the channel. See you all in the next video.